So in this section we need to work some spiked or extended treble crochet stitches. So I've worked the first row and I've started at the second row, and I'm at the place where we need to make our first spiked treble. So we make it in the same way as the treble stitch. The only difference really is where the stitch goes. So yarn over, and instead of inserting it into the chain or chain space as we normally would, we're going to go right down to the row below and work into the skipped stitch, which is that one down there. So yarn over and pull through, but we need to pull this yarn right up to the height of the row below the one we're working into. If we don't pull it up like that, it's going to squash this row down and it's going to ruin the tension of the blanket. So we pull it up, and that's why it's extended or spiked. It leaves this long spike at the bottom of the stitch, or you could say it extends the yarn up to the bottom of the stitch. So depends which term you're familiar with, but I've gone with spiked. So just complete the treble stitch in the normal way. Now, as you can see, it is pulling this row up slightly and still squashing this down, so you have to make sure you pull it right up, just to make sure that as you work the row that will even out if you've left the length there. So let me show you again. So it's a normal treble into the next stitch, then a chain, skip a stitch and a normal treble into the next. So we're leaving chain spaces on this row because on the next row we'll be working into this stitch. So let's make another spiked treble. So yarn over, reach right down to the row below the one we're working into, insert the hook, pull the yarn right up to the height that we know we'll need when this row is sitting correctly. Yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So as you work into the next stitch each time after the spike, it will pull this row back up to the correct height again. So as I work this treble into this stitch, that pulls the row back up. So there's the extended or spiked part of the treble. So work the same way along the row. So there's our completed row with all our nice spiky trebles reaching down into the row below, and we've also got our spaces in this ready for the next row so that we can work into these stitches. So we're reaching down below the row we're working into each time for these spiked stitches. So the last thing you need to know to complete this larking around section is how to do a spiked double crochet. The last row is worked with double stitches instead of treble. So I've started the row with just normal double stitches, and now I've got to a place where we're going to make a spiked double. So it's exactly the same way as the treble. So instead of working into the current row as we might normally, the hook is going to go right down into the row below. So we'll yarn over, pull the yarn through, and then remember to pull it right up to the height of the row that we're working into. So I've pulled it slightly above here because, as we mentioned before, it does naturally squash the work down, so we pull up a little extra and then we just complete the stitch in the normal way. So yarn over and pull through, and there's our longer spiky double crochet. So there we are at the end of the row with all our nice spiky stitches pointing down into the lower rows, and that's the completed section, and it ends on a wrong side row.